Welcome aboard to another edition of Dallas Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com, sponsored by the great people at Window Nation. I am a very tired Fort Worth Star-Telegram sports columnist, Mac Engel, and the man playing that instrument is Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr. Clarence, I was up last night into the wee hours covering the Dallas Stars' second round Game 1 action at the American Airlines Center where they lost to the Seattle Kraken. So I'm running on not a lot of sleep. You, however, look fantastic as always, looking like you're running on about 15 hours of sleep. Clarence, before we get into the Dallas Cowboys draft, we've got a far more important topic to talk about, which is the greatness of your daughter, Jaira Hill, state champion gymnast, the Texas gymnastics meet was this weekend, and your daughter finished first in the all-around competition. Clarence, tell me, as a proud father, what that was like to watch your baby girl crowned state champion.
It was, it's an overused word of the usual NFL draft this weekend, but it was surreal. I mean, just the whole process and just rewinding. I spent Thursday and Friday at the NFL draft, and she didn't have a good day or best day on Friday, but she was third in the competition. And, I got out of the draft at like 1 o'clock in the morning and slept for about 2 hours. I got up at 5 a.m. and drove to College Station for me, talk about no sleep, on Saturday morning because I had to be there. It was her last meet, senior year, last meet of her career. And she didn't have her best day. It was crazy, but she was good. She's good all around. She was solid, but you don't know. And they cut off the score. One thing they do, you can follow scores for most of the meet, but at the state, after like a couple of events, they cut off the score. So you don't really know. You can't really gauge how she's doing compared to what the other girls are doing. And, it came down to awards. I said, oh, well, she'll probably get third or fourth. She wanted to win it all. She got second last year. And so they got the 9th, 10th, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Okay, she'll get 3. They passed her 3, 2. I said, she didn't get nothing. And we were just like head sunk. And then they announced her name and just tears started to flow. I mean, she was so excited and so happy. And I cried with her. I didn't know whether I was going to come. And I know the work she's put into it. I know the work I put into it, paying for it and driving her all around. Feel like I won as well. I won a title too. Like I said, I guess you got one thing to say for the people that call me the Cowboys jinx, because they haven't won anything since I showed up. Well, I'm not the jinx. I raised the champion, okay? I know
you can't blame me.
It's bigger than me, sir. It's not me, okay? I know what a champion looks like.
Congratulations. Was it weird celebrating in College Station? You're a UT guy. You're a Longhorn. You're an Austinite. Is that odd celebrating it up in Aggie land?
But Texas always dominates in Aggie land, so it was fitting.
That's a good one. Yeah. There's no real congratulations to her.
It was amazing
because I still remember when she was tiny, and to see that, and now she's still planning on going to Rice. Any chance she might change her mind?
She plans on going to Rice. I just call her Champ, but she's going to Rice.
Good for her. Congratulations to the Hill family and Jaira. That's fantastic. Okay, let's moving on to the task at hand, the Dallas Cowboys draft, which apparently they won. Every team, Clarence, every team can't believe their guy fell to them. Everything broke right, got the guy they wanted. But Clarence, it does look to me like the Dallas Cowboys, and with all their selections, did a pretty good job of addressing needs and getting what you would say was probably, if not the best player available, certainly in the discussion. The number 1 overall draft pick and the 26th pick overall was defensive tackle out of Michigan, Mozzie Smith. You and I had talked about it last week. You were guessing maybe offensive guard. It sounded to me looking like they considered heavily TCU guard Stephen Avila. There were other players out there. Certainly the tight ends were a position of demand late in the first round, but they went with Mozzie Smith. And I think you tweeted this, I'm pretty sure you wrote it, that Clarence, with every passing year, this team looks more and more like a Mike McCarthy team in Green Bay. Mozzie Smith, big guy, can apparently lift a tank. I am assuming this guy better be a starter from day one, correct?
Yeah, he's a starter from day one, and that's why they brought him in there. It's funny because Mike McCarthy's an offensive coach, but you look at a lot of their draft picks, especially early on, they've been defensive guys. They've taken defensive guys and stuff like that since Mike McCarthy taken over. It's about Mike McCarthy. It's also about Will McClay and his influence on the draft. But yeah, this guy's going to be a day one starter. They want to improve the run defense. They were considering a guard, either Avila or Joe Bergeron. They decided on Smith because they wanted to improve that run defense. This speaks to they're trying to build this team around Micah, and get the guy to fit around Micah, allow Micah to do what he does best. And you look at last year, toward the end of last year, the sack numbers dropped off as teams started running against the Cowboys, and they want to stop the bleeding on the run. And it's important. And you saw with the Eagles how great a running team they have, and the quarterback sneak. Well, this is a quarterback sneak stopper. Sneak stopper. Mozzie Smith.
He looks like a huge guy, and we obviously talked a lot about Will McClay. We'll mention him here later, and certainly Mike McCarthy. But it's funny. I don't know why. Is this a Dan Quinn guy? You follow Seattle's defense when he was in as the defensive coordinator under Pete Carroll, or maybe when he was the head coach in Atlanta. Clarence, is this his body type guy, or is this more of a McCarthy guy, or are they one and the same?
Well, I mean, I think they're definitely one and the same, but I don't think that they're drafting anybody on defense without Dan Quinn's stamp of approval. And if you go back to draft night and you saw Michael Parsons' excitement, he exchanged a text with Dan Quinn earlier in the day, and they were targeting Mozzie Smith all along. That's what they. And so Dan, was really excited about the pick. So there's no question you can link Dan Quinn to the pick of Mozzie Smith. And Dan Quinn is talking about he's evolved. I mean, don't just typecast him with the Seattle defense. He's evolved in his thinking since Seattle. And certainly that was Legion of Boom, one of those titles. But the league has also changed since then. And he's evolved in his schemes and his thinking since those Seattle days as well.
The league's changed and football's changed and all that. But at the end, it's still about guys who can play and big human beings in the middle. And the only question I had, you mentioned it the other day, I think it was on Twitter, when the Dallas Cowboys selected CeeDee Lamb, I was critical of it because I thought this guy's never going to catch passes because they got Amari Cooper and all these other guys. Well, clearly it worked out in part because they dumped Cooper, and the guy's really good. But one of the guys who was available was Clavon Chason, a linebacker of LSU that everybody liked, but he fell, and he was selected after CeeDee Lamb. Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars recently decided not to pick up the option on his 5th year of his rookie contract, which basically means that's a bust of a pick. When you start picking in the 20s, Clarence, there is that temptation to select for need, and maybe you're reaching for guys like maybe Jacksonville did with Chason. Is there any chance at all, Clarence, or do you think there was enough guys who were in the middle, whether it was Avila, whether it was Michael Mayer out of the tight end out of Notre Dame, the kid out of Utah, was there enough of those guys in the middle that at 26 they were going to hit a need, and it's not without feeling like this is a reach, like a Chason type pick?
Yeah, and I don't know if you look back, I don't know if Chason was a reach. Obviously, he didn't buzz. He didn't hit, but I don't know if it was a reach. I mean, he was picked where he was supposed to go. He certainly was picked after the Cowboys picked. So I don't know if it was a reach by Jacksonville at that time. A lot of people respected him coming out of LSU to be that type of guy, but the Cowboys just didn't have him high on their board. You got to understand that they talk about it. They only have a number of first-round picks, even though they're 31. Only certain guys are rated first-round picks, and they picked the guy who was screaming at them and CeeDee Lamb as the first-round pick. And you say it worked out after Murray left. Actually, he let them receive in the year before Murray left. So, I mean, he was –
it worked out. However you want to cut it,
yeah,
it's really worked out.
But going back to this pick, I mean, it was just the right – certainly there were other guys they could have taken, but they value this guy and what he does. Certainly it's about the best guy on the board, but also best guy on the board respective to needs as well.
Let's look at some of the other picks real quick. Tight end out of Michigan, Luke Schoonmaker, 2 Michigan guys right away in rounds 1 and 2. Then they get your guy.
Well, the Eagles went with Georgia, the Cowboys went with Michigan. I don't know if that means anything. It's not college football, it's football.
I don't know if anybody watched the college football playoff. I'm not necessarily sure that's something you want to be waving the flag about. That Michigan, Mozzie Smith was on a defense that got run over and scored on at will. Amari DiMarcado still running on that field against Mozzie Smith and all those other guys. Luke Schoonmaker, tight end out of Michigan. Demarion Overshown, third-round pick out of the University of Texas, a linebacker. And then they get a host of other guys. I don't know how to pronounce this kid's name. The edge rusher out of San Jose State. He's obviously a project. How do you pronounce his name, Clarence?
It's Fiocco. He's not a he's the guy that they really like, and a lot of people really like him.
They always say, "Oh, we really like this guy."
Well, I mean, he's picking the
he's a first-round pick out of. He's a fourth-round pick out of San Jose State. It's going to take him a minute to develop. Okay.
Well, the problem is you don't have a minute anymore in the field. You got to come in and play. I mean, are they going to draft over you? Like you think that the Cowboys were going to have patience with the third-round pick from last year, but if he don't show up this year, they're going to move on from him. Jalen Tolbert, you got to come in and play. It's not a minute. But yeah, I'm just telling you. Look at some of the people. A lot of people like Fiocco and what he brings as the edge rusher, possible guy that can go down and rush from the interior. But yeah, you can say you can nitpick everything. Certainly, if you're not number one overall, everybody has flaws. Yes.
Well, it's not even necessarily about that. Especially there's certain positions where, and the one that comes to mind is Tank Lawrence. He was a second-round pick, and if you looked at how his body changed from his first to his second year, and really his second to his third year, he lost some weight, and he got into the weight room, and he was physically a different man. And that happens in your early 20s to your mid-20s. You get on an NFL weight programs, your body just changes. So I look at some of these guys, and you're right, you've got to show something. But I look at Dorrance Armstrong, a kid from Kansas. You think about how much his body changed from his first to his third years. And now he's a reliable, good NFL player. He's going to get another contract. So I look at these young defensive end types, these edge rushers, and they come in. And now Micah Parsons is a different beast. That's an off the grid outlier type human being. But some of these other guys, it just takes some time. Overshawn, I'm a heck of a player at UT. It's hard not to like the guy. But it's more like, are you going to come in, you're going to play special teams, and are you going to be a guy who is projecting up? So in that second year, you're really showing something. Jalen Tolbert's first year was a wash. The guy did nothing for whatever reason. And you're right. If he doesn't show something now, he's gone. And I would imagine he knows it. Okay, let's go into the reality that the general manager of the Dallas Cowboys is not a Jones. And this is something that Troy Aikman has mentioned, that the general manager really, when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, is Will McClay. And we have seen consistently in his drafts, they've drafted really, really well. And I think anybody, after a while, it's kind of like Ozzie Newsome when he was with Baltimore. Certain guys, when they run draft rooms or when it comes to player acquisition, after a while, you kind of start to trust that guy. And it's almost to the position, Will McClay is almost getting to the position, Clarence, where I think other NFL teams would look at Will McClay and say, if he likes that guy, then we should like that guy. And it's almost to the point now where I think his influence is as significant as anybody that the Cowboys have ever had after the departure of Jimmy Johnson, right or wrong?
Well, you could add Bill Parcells to that because he certainly had a huge influence on the draft room. But yeah, especially in the scouting department, Will McClay, you got, some other guys who were there, but Will McClay is important to what they're doing. You just go back to the first pick. There was a video of the Cowboys making their first pick, and they were debating on who to take. And Jerry says, "Will, who do you want?" And he, didn't blink. He said Mozzie Smith. The Cowboys took Mozzie Smith. And you go back to since he's been here, the picks they've had, it was Will and Stephen Jones who talked Jerry Jones off the Johnny Manziel ledge in 2014. And he's brought a calm, a consistency, some calm to the Jones circus in that war room. They've been solid. They picked solid picks. And we're not even talking about the decisions he's made in free agency, with working with the Cowboys budget, not want to spend a lot on guys and hitting on guys who come in there and make plays and make impacts on this team. So, Will McClay, he's not the GM in name, but he's the de facto GM and how he runs this personnel department and influences the people they choose to put on the Cowboys roster for sure.
You think in the next, I know he recently re-signed a contract to remain with the Cowboys, Clarence. Members of the staff and I have talked about this. There's a reason why, even though the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl in a long time, there's a reason why all of these people want to work for the Cowboys. There's a reason why all these guys are lined up from here to Seattle to want to work for Jerry Jones. They really like it here. But at some point, do you think any chance they're going to lose him, that he will go be a general manager of another NFL franchise? Because he's never going to get that title here.
Yeah, no, he's not because his name is not Jones. And Jerry
Right.
Jones certainly not giving it up. He's socks and jocks. He's been the GM since, doing the Jimmy Johnson day. That's been his title. I think Will likes it here. He certainly likes the Jones family. He likes what they've done for him. He certainly has had people have inquired about him in the past. He's turned them down to stay here. We'll see as his kids get older and graduate high school whether he wants to leave or something like that. But he's definitely going to have opportunities. He's definitely going to draw interest. He's drawn interest in the past. He's certainly going to draw interest in the future, especially with the push to get more minority GMs. He's certainly the highest ranking African American in the Cowboys organization. He's one of the top African American GM, one of the top GMs. I mean, personnel people, period, in the NFL. So the opportunities will continue to be there for Will McClay.
All right, we got more to talk about here on Cowboys Overtime, but first, a word from our friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no payments and pay no interest until 2025. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right. Thank you very much, Window Nation. Back here on Cowboys Overtime. I am Fort Worth Star-Telegram columnist Mac Engel, joined by Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr. Clarence, by far and away, the most charming video from any of the NFL draft day conversations, from war rooms, moments with families, obviously watching Will Levis not get picked in the first round, and he sat there with his family in the green room in Kansas City. It was really uncomfortable and unfortunate. He eventually did get picked in the second round by Tennessee, which is probably his best place to go. But I think the most charming video came from the Cowboys in the 6th round when Deuce Vaughn, the Kansas State running back, his father called him. Deuce's dad is a longtime Dallas Cowboys scout. Called him and said, "Would you like to come to work with me next week?" Telling him basically, we are going to draft you. Clarence, we followed Deuce Vaughn as a Big 12 guy, and obviously he's been a sensational running back. One of so many that, obviously fall through the cracks, so to speak, as teams select running backs. But Clarence, it was a lot of fun watching that moment. I know it was corny and all that other stuff, but can you imagine that moment? You work for an NFL team and you watch your son grow up and he's a Big 12 running back and he's really good and kills at AT&T Stadium in the Big 12 championship game when Kansas State beat TCU a few months ago. Can you imagine that moment where you get to call your son and say, "You're coming to play for the team where I'm working"?
Yeah, it just tears flow for everyone. Everyone in the room, everyone watching it. It was, we talked to Will McClay yesterday. Said, people have called him and said that's one of the most fantastic and touching and heartfelt moments they've seen on draft day. And you just got everybody. The video has been on Twitter, it's been retweeted, and it was just a great moment. I can't even imagine it, and just how they did it because they kind of set him up.
Totally.
He was out of the room as they were talking, and he went and actually called his son on the phone because his son was frustrated by not being drafted and frustrated with the process. He called his son on the phone and was reassuring his son, but then he went back in the draft room and was trying to do right by the Cowboys, and the Cowboys had already made this decision they were going to take his son. He was the highest ranked player on the board, left. They certainly had the needed running back. He knew that they should take him, and so he comes back in there, and Jerry starts talking about other players. Okay, starts talking about how Jerry can be a joke. He starts talking about other players, and he's sitting there talking about talking about the board and all this stuff here, and then Jerry just hands him a napkin and says, "Hey, you go make the pick." And it's his son's name. And just he broke down in tears and he called his son and said, "You want to come work with your dad next week?" And it was just, it was, and everybody just erupted in applause. And it was just, again, overused word, but surreal for
Yeah,
him.
yeah, that was
Cowboys,
neat.
everyone watching it. It was just a beautiful moment. And this was not a charity pick. This was not a pick that
No,
was.
Deuce Vaughn's a good player.
This was not nepotism. I mean, there was nepotism. They were taking him higher. If you go
Right.
back to the process, he never was in the room when they were evaluating his son. They never brought him in to do a visit. They knew what he was about, but they never brought him in to do a visit to Cowboy. He tried to take certainly an antiseptic approach. I'm not going to be part of this. You guys, we want to be pure in how you drafted, no bias intended. But this guy can play.
Yeah, he can play, and I think if you look at the depth chart, and I know for whatever reason Jerry Jones won't. I guess he's just trying to create headlines. Won't close the door on the return of Zeke Elliott. Zeke Elliott is not coming back. He's not coming back to the Cowboys. In fact, I don't know when he's going to get an NFL contract. He probably will at some point, but he's not coming back to the Cowboys. Clarence, Deuce Vaughn looks like the backup today. That Tony Pollard is the starter, and that Deuce Vaughn is the backup right now. Am I wrong?
Yeah, most definitely backup, and because he does have a position for he can do some things on special teams. He's going to be active on game day. They got Ronald Jones and some other guys who can do some of the physical stuff, but I mean, Deuce Vaughn is a weapon. You watch him. He runs inside. He runs outside. He makes people miss. He runs strong. Yeah, he's 5'5", 180 pounds, but he's TNT comes in small packages, and that's what Deuce Vaughn is, and he's electric, and so he's going to bring some electricity to the Cowboys. Certainly the passing game, the return game, and all of that. So this was not a pick that was all about sentiment and a family pick. This was a solid football player the Cowboys got.
Darren Sproles starter kit by any chance? Those are heavy words.
All of that. I mean, that's who you compare him to. And Darren Sproles went to Kansas State. Darren Sproles is his mentor. Darren Sproles wore 43. He's wearing 42 with the Cowboys. It's all synergy. It's all connected together. And if they get something close to Darren Sproles, they hit on a great player.
No doubt about it. Okay, a couple more things, and we'll wrap it up here on Cowboys Overtime. Everybody, the draft grades come in, and nobody really knows. I mean, if it gives you any idea, I think Mel Kiper, who's there's a tweet going around: should Mel Kiper be in the Hall of Fame? Yeah, he probably should, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Yeah, as a contributor, if we want to talk about people who contributed to the growth of professional football, Mel Kiper deserves it. But Mel's great, but he's guessing like everybody else. And if memory serves, I think Mel Kiper put a C- on Kansas City when they drafted Patrick Mahomes in the first round. I mean, that's the great thing about draft grades is you can go back and look at it, just see how idiotically wrong you were. Like me talking about CeeDee Lamb. God, did I eat crow on that. But right now, everybody, don't roll your eyes. You've had a million of them.
You did a lot of crow. I mean, you're one of the best that eat throwing some stuff out there, and you.
It was a good idea. It was a solid premise. I just looked like an idiot after. It was a solid premise. But everybody now is talking about the greatness of Howie Roseman, who apparently the Philadelphia Eagles GM, who should go in the Hall of Fame right next to Mel Kiper. The Philadelphia Eagles draft what feels like the entire roster of the University of Georgia. Not a bad idea. If you watch the College Football National Championship game, where the Georgia Bulldogs are still scoring touchdowns against TCU, drafting Georgia wasn't a bad idea. They got Jalen Carter, might have been the most talented player in the draft. Got a host of other guys. Clarence, Cowboys looks like they had a really solid draft. They're in second place in the NFC East. Do they close the gap on the Eagles, do you think, with this class?
Well, the thing about the Eagles lost a lot in free agency. And certainly they got a lot of players in this class, and they had higher picks and got more name picks, and everybody is excited about that. I think Eagles are still the best team in the NFC, but I think the Cowboys closed the gap somewhat, based on some of the Eagles' losses. And you can't expect all those guys or rookies to come in and contribute immediately and make huge impacts. I mean, the Eagles signed drafted 2 Georgia players last year, and they did nothing. They did little on that team as they made the run to the Super Bowl. So we'll see, and so we'll see on these other guys. The first round pick they got, has some character issues, and certainly he was a guy that
Sure.
Was out of shape at his pro day. So we have to question his work ethic and see what type of player is going to be. So it all looks good on paper. Certainly, the Eagles bring a lot of guys back. They certainly have the quarterback who was runner up to NFL Offensive Player of the Year, run up to MVP last year. But the Cowboys do like what they have around Dak, and we'll see. I just know that the Cowboys should be considered one of the contenders in the NFC. 12 and 12, 12 and 5, 12 and 5 last couple of years. The question is, what are they going to do in the playoffs?
And I think we have to remind ourselves in May, late April, 1st of May, that when you draft guys, rookies have a curve. And other than running backs who can walk in and be in the prime of their career, we saw it with Zeke Elliott, where I'm confident we're going to see it with Bijan Robinson in Atlanta, right. Probably seeing it Deuce Vaughn. These guys need time. And what they contribute this season, you're not going to win Super Bowls or win big playoff games because of rookies. You're just not. And now, did they develop? Did they show you something? Does Schoonmaker make some plays? He's not going to start. Does Mozzie Smith make some plays? Does he plug the middle? Does he look like he's going to develop? If half of these guys hit, you've done pretty well. Last thing we want to talk about, because it is amazing, TCU had a record 8 draft picks. First-round player, wide receiver, Quentin Johnston goes to Los Angeles. He's the first-round pick of the Chargers. Everybody we thought was going to get picked, including Max Duggan, who was a 7th-round pick. The funny thing is, all these guys are going to L.A., and they're going to play in the home stadium. Their home stadium is going to be the site of their worst college game by far, which is SoFi Stadium, where they got steamrolled by Georgia. Clarence, Stephen Avila, all these guys got picked. Stephen Avila, D. Winters goes to New Orleans. Kendre Miller, Max Duggan, all these guys got picked up. Who's the guy do you think that's going to make, Max Duggan's a project. He's going to need some time. And, there's no guarantee he's even going to make the team. I mean, that's a task as a quarterback. But, they all got a shot. Of all those guys, who's the one that you look at and says, that's a perfect place for him, and he should thrive?
Well, I mean, I think that Avila is going to be the guy that's going to certainly make an impact first. He's
more so than Quentin Johnston?
Yeah, I mean, we love Quentin Johnston. I think there's some question about his hands. We'll see. I mean, we got some history of TCU receivers going high and not hitting in the draft.
For sure. Josh Doxson, yeah.
I mean, and we'll see, because he was a similar big play, big size receiver who didn't hit. That has to play out a little bit. Certainly we like Quentin and what he's done, but I think the guy that's going to walk in and be a starter and be a solid player from the beginning is Avila.
I think you're right. I think Kendre Miller is going to be a nice player for a little while. I could see him doing pretty well. Quentin Johnston, to me, is a better player than Josh Doxson, because I think he's a little bit more physical. Josh was a really good player. He went to a bad place. He got hurt, and it didn't work out for him. I have high hopes for Quentin. I don't, the Chargers are the Chargers. I don't know if that's the greatest spot, but considering he's playing with Justin Herbert, that's a good place to be. All right, we've talked forever. Clarence, congratulations to your daughter again on winning the gymnastics state championship. That's a hell of an achievement. So congratulations to her. For all of your Dallas Cowboys coverage needs, be sure to keep keeping up with us on StarTelegram.com. Dallas Stars too. He's Clarence Hill. I'm Mac Engel. We'll see you next week on Cowboys Overtime.